In this video, we're going to look at the UDL principles on the interactive UDL diagram from CAS.org. In your module, you will see a link to the interactive version of the UDL principles. And it should look like this relatively. And what you'll notice is there's all sorts of arrows and links, active links that you can go to. There's also up here, multiple means of engagement, representation, action and expression, and some additional graphic organizers, downloads, etc. So when you're looking at the UDL principles, and I want you to really explore this, this is such a good resource for you. Not only does it go through the different networks of the brain, as we've talked about in our module, but it also goes even deeper into each piece of the UDL principle. And when I say go deeper, if you click on multiple means of engagement, it also explains each and every guideline when I click on here, and also the checkpoints, which are kind of like standards for the guidelines, if that makes sense. So if I click on recruiting interest, so part of multiple means of engagement, one guideline is to recruit interest. Another guideline is sustain that effort and persistence. So you can't only just bring students in, for example, with a little bit of motivation. You have to keep up that motivation, keep challenging them. And then self-regulation. So as we can see, some of the checkpoints: optimize individual choice and autonomy, checkpoint 7.1. So when we look at recruiting interest, it gives us a nice paragraph explaining how to recruit interest and what it is. And it says, provide options for recruiting interest. So how can you bring students in? And then the checkpoints again. So at any turn, you can go to the checkpoint or the principle or the specific guideline. So under the guideline of recruiting interest, there are 3 checkpoints: optimize individual choice and autonomy, optimize relevance, value, and authenticity, minimize threats and distractions. Let's look at optimize individual choice and autonomy. If we look at this, we can say in an instructional setting, it's often inappropriate to provide choice of the learning objective itself, but is often appropriate to offer choices in how the objective can be reached. That's a little bit of the context. I'm not going to go through it all. It also gives you options to know how to implement this checkpoint. Provide learners with as much direct discretion and autonomy as possible by providing choices in such things as the level of the challenge, the type of rewards or recognitions available, the context or content used for practicing and assessing skills, the tools used for information gathering, color, design, graphics, layouts, the sequence of timing of completion, allow learners to participate in the design of the classroom activities and tasks, involve learners where and whenever possible in setting their own personal academic and behavior goals. What does this all mean? When we say give individual choice, so the choices are, if I'm talking about animal habitats, maybe one of the choices is the animal that you get to choose or the habitat that you get to choose as a student. I may have a challenge where you can complete a diorama for the habitat, or maybe go on Minecraft for education and create the habitat digitally. The tools used for information gathering could be reading a book, could be going to the zoo. So there's lots of different ways that you can encourage individual choice and autonomy. The other thing, for example, is a slideshow, a narrated PowerPoint or slideshow in which the student can decide when it's time to go on to the next slide, or how fast the slide goes, or how big the font or text is. That is how these checkpoints work in the UDL interactive guidelines. And I just love this website. It is very, very intuitive, and no matter where you go, you can always get information, whether it's at the 10,000 feet level or right down to the actual checkpoint. So I encourage you to look at this quite a bit, especially when we're doing our project. And then finally, at the very bottom, we know that we have an expert learner if their goal is purposeful and motivated, resourceful and knowledgeable, strategic and goal oriented. So this is the goal of multiple means of engagement, is to have a purposeful and motivated learner. The goal of multiple means of representation is to have a resourceful and knowledgeable learner. And the goal of action and expression is to have a strategic and goal-directed learner. So this is just a brief overview of how to look at the guidelines, how to view the checkpoints, how to dig down to the nitty-gritty of how you enact these checkpoints. So take a look, explore, and I think you will find it very fascinating. You'll use this quite a bit in our project for UDL Part 1 and Part 2.